Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Co-Creators Podcast, the only podcast for innovation experts dedicated to the challenges and opportunities of customer co-creation. I'm your host, Kevin Lonnie. In this month's episode, we have a highly compelling, highly informative case study for you. We are going to share with you the origins of the Verizon Hum, a diagnostic and tracking system for smart car connectivity. Now, as the owner of a fine 2010 automobile, i.e. not exactly new or the smartest car in the parking garage, the Hum has become a great equalizer. Now, to explain how customer co-creation helped bring the Verizon Hum to market, I'm joined today by John Bowen of Bowen NYC and previously McGarry Bowen Innovation. Now, John, can you explain your role at McGarry Bowen Innovation at the time this project began and how you helped champion customer co-creation into the development of the Verizon Hum?
MB Innovations was created to be a dedicated consultancy for Verizon. We were 20 people concentrating on developing new product concepts for the Verizon company. We covered the disciplines ranging from research and strategy to creative and development, all in one group of about 20 people.
Mm-hmm. What was the impetus of trying to bring customer co-creation to the forefront of your innovation?
Our first decision was we wanted the customer to be part of the process. Mm-hmm. We wanted the customer to be integrated into everything we did and across all the disciplines. So we wanted to dispel the notion that it was research that sort of owned insight and owned that customer perspective. We wanted everyone in the group of about 20 people to have access to the customer and to feel that they could get to know the customer and they could empathize with the customer as they were doing their work. This is a best practice in agile development, and we really wanted to put that into effect.
Yeah, to me, because we were talking previously and I was asking the initial reactions to Verizon to what they were getting out of this customer co-creation. And it was interesting to me when you said at first they were very much underwhelmed. Customers were really trying to show how smart they were stating the obvious. There really wasn't anything of great substance at the beginning, which is probably why a lot of companies give up on customer co-creation, because you could have just walked away at that point and said, this isn't really producing anything other than what we don't know. But you talked about getting past that and being able to understand more of what are the underlying unmet needs and perhaps the pain points. So just talk us through a little bit about how you were able to get past that and the fact your client is underwhelmed to eventually produce the real nuggets that help develop the product.
First things first, we had a real partnership, a real collaboration with our client. So while they might have noticed that we were hearing things that we might not be able to use initially, there was no panic. There was a certain amount of patience and a certain amount of trust. You do have to have that. You have to trust the process and you have to trust the people involved to be able to bring this around through a series of events to something that will produce results.
And then it's absorbed within the halls of Verizon. What happened as far as your role at that point? It went inside and then it emerged a few months later, or what took place?
So every process is different. And even within Verizon, there was some variation in terms of how this worked. In this particular case, the eventual Verizon Hum product was being developed by a division of Verizon that was not fully integrated in the client group that we serve. So another
silo. So when the product came out, how much of your handiwork did you see from the concept you developed to the actual product itself?
Well, our primary insight was very much at the forefront of the product at launch, because I mentioned before that our early exploration produced a very, very long list of possible features for any kind of smart car implementation. But when we really pressed the consumer into what they did, what they valued, what they would pay for, and what they were concerned about, the theme was safety. And that theme of safety became the lens through which every feature under consideration was put. And that really began to define the concept.
Yeah, my father actually was an engineer, so he was like, he could relate more to the people developing the product, but it was like, he often, sometimes though, didn't like when other people would sort of intrude on his ability to create something. So I think that gets to be the challenge too, if you will. Like, how is this being meant to inspire that person, that engineer, that developer, rather than take away their autonomy?
Here's the way I think of it. Traditionally, the creation process or development process was a series of handoffs. As you migrated through these different disciplines that I named before, research, strategy, creative, development. What that does is it separates the development people, the engineers, from the opportunity to really gain empathy into the consumer.
You brought up something I felt that was quite interesting when you talked about the diversity of customers. There is one school of thought that talks about screening people for their own creativity. In other words, a litmus test, or perhaps expertise in the category. The other school of thought, the one that personally, subjectively, I ascribe to, is more of the diversity theorem, which is, as long as they have a passion for helping to solve the challenge you are, or for the category, let them in, because sometimes the best ideas are from the people you least expect to have them come up with them. But once those ideas are introduced, people tend to respond to them and build upon them.
Here's the way I see it. A diverse group of people is so much more valuable because the ideas will be much further ranging. However, it creates more work for the researcher, and it creates more work for the development team, because they have to work much harder to get to the core of what's happening. They have to work much harder to figure out what is the theme in what we're hearing. It requires more follow-up, it requires more synthesis, it requires more thinking. And that can be daunting, but it's worth it.
So again, trust in the process and managing the expectations of your internal champion allows this process to play out to its appropriate conclusion. John, I want to thank you for coming here today and sharing your insights. I'm sure everyone who's watching this will find it very informative. And again, just thank you very much. I really appreciate both the authenticity and the intelligence, and once again the passion that you bring to the innovation world. It was for me. It was fun and informative.
Happy to be here.
As John pointed out, with successful customer co-creation, you need to position the wisdom of crowds as an inspiration and not a threat to your internal creative team. Inspiring your team will get you to a better starting point and allow you to produce new products and services that are more likely to succeed. At the end of the day, it's impacting the bottom line. Well, that's a wrap on episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please send them my way. I would love to hear from you. So see you next time for another edition of the Co-Creators Podcast.